China continues its military drills around Taiwan. The aggressive show of military might comes after U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's Taipei visit. Pelosi's tour, which marks the highest-ranking elected U.S. official's visit to Taiwan in decades, irked China and ripped up a series of talks and cooperation agreements with Washington, most notably on climate change and defense. China has deployed fighter jets, warships, ballistic missiles. Analysts describe Chinese aggression as practice for a blockade, an ultimate invasion of self-ruled island which China claims is part of its own territory. China's drills were expected to draw to a close on Sunday, but neither Beijing nor Taipei confirmed the conclusion.
State Council also elaborated China's solemn position on the U.S. provocative actions violating China's sovereignty. He emphasized that cross-strait peace and stability is underpinned by One China principle, that the real guardrail for peaceful coexistence between China and the U.S. is the three joint communiques. Seeking independence, soliciting U.S. support leads nowhere, and containing China with the Taiwan question is doomed to fail. China has every reason to make strong response to U.S. Speaker Pelosi's insistence on making a visit to Taiwan in disregard of China's grave concerns and firm opposition.
Now, China has said that the Eastern Theater of Chinese Army has continued to carry out joint exercises and training in the sea and airspace around Taiwan. Beijing is also set to carry out live-fire drills in parts of South China Sea and Yellow Sea. Meanwhile, Taiwan continues to remain defiant. The island is due to begin its own live-fire drills on Tuesday as China continues its drills in Taiwan Strait. Premier Su Shang accused Beijing of barbarously disturbing the region's peace using military action. The scale and intensity of China's drills and Beijing's withdrawal from key talks on climate and defense have triggered global outrage. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Washington is determined to act responsibly to avoid a major global crisis, while Australia and Latvia have called for restraint.
I think what is most critical at the moment is that the temperature is lowered and calm is restored when it comes to cross-strait tensions. Australia continues to urge restraint. Australia continues to urge de-escalation, and this is not, something that solely Australia is calling for. And the whole region is concerned about the current situation. The whole region is calling for stability to be restored.
I very much join my colleague, Australian Minister, in calling for restraint. But I think that what we see is that there is a kind of raising assertiveness of China, not only in this part of the world, but globally, also in our part of the region. It is very important that we work together and we provide the same kind of message of the need to have a restraint, not to overreact in their actions, and not to create another regional and global hotspots.
Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Lev Nachman from Taipei, who's a political analyst. Welcome to the broadcast. China continues its military drills. What is your risk assessment of the continued drills? Also, what would you say of the role of the international community and the United States, particularly here?
So it's important to keep in mind that military threats have been an ongoing, regular phenomenon in this part of the world for decades. In the last few years, there's been no shortage of Chinese jets flying into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Where we see the escalation now in the last week is that military jet flyovers have moved from the air defense identification zone into the median line, which is a midpoint between Taiwan and China that has long been respected as a point that jets will not fly over, at least regularly, if not trying to conduct a threat. By moving from the air defense identification zone to the median line, this is really the sort of change in the status quo that China has been pushing ever since they've begun these new sets of military drills.
Right, of course. Now, how well equipped and prepared would you say Taiwan is, which has remained defiant so far?
I think, between the war in Ukraine and this last round of direct threats from China, I think this is truly going to become the wake-up call for Taiwan and for Taiwan civil society that military preparedness and domestic defense needs to be front and center in terms of politics. Even before this last round of threats because of Ukraine, I think there's been a readjustment in attitude domestically from the military in what types of defense and what types of civil preparedness Taiwan needs to begin preparing for with regards to a potential conflict in the future.
Right. Now, that being said, do you see further escalation in this scenario?
We will not see escalation on the side of Taiwan or likely the United States. I think Taiwan and the United States are very aware of how heightened tensions are right now, and neither side wants to add to those tensions. We've seen this from the United States in canceling its own missile tests that were supposed to be scheduled. They've canceled those as a way to show that they are not trying to match the PRC's threats with their own threats. And we've seen Taiwan remain relatively cool and calm. Neither the U.S. or Taiwan is interested in matching the PRC's rhetoric or matching the PRC's military demonstrations. If there is escalation, it's going to be from the PRC.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Lebnachman. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.